Hello again, friends, and you are my friends. That was a very short intro, much shorter than I thought it was going to be. But welcome all to Talking Town. It is, of course, your Wednesday night Talking Town. It's 8 p.m. I'm joined by two lovely people, as you can see on your screen right now. First of all, I'm joined by this man here, Mr. Tuxford. You know him, you love him, you appreciate him. And this man here, he is your Discord community volunteer moderator, otherwise known as ITFC Beard. Many hats, lots of comments, lots of opinions. And we thought, you know what, let's get him on early doors. Don't forget, this show is brought to you by Stowmarket Osteopaths, or in partnership with Stowmarket Osteopaths and Matchday. A little bit more on them later on. Don't forget, like and subscribe. And we can't do these shows. Well, we could do these shows. The three of us sat here just, talking about our football club, but we don't want to do it without you wonderful people at home. So please do get active in our live chat. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your feelings as we build up to another weekend. This time Town on the road. And of course, we'll have our members show on Friday. But fellas, I think it feels a little bit like if you're a midfield player that hasn't been linked with Town, stand up, because that might be a shorter queue than the one that if you are a midfield player that has been linked with Town, stand up. There's another series of links today. First of all, let's kick it off with Lewis Miley, Newcastle United midfield player, loan move rejected, according to GWTD. Tuxford, Mark, what are your thoughts on that potential room, that link, that rejection, that approach?
Yeah, I think obviously we're in the market for at least two central midfielders, really. So I'm not too surprised about the amount of links that are happening. But I think obviously this is Lewis Miley is a player that is obviously highly rated by Newcastle and Eddie Howe, and it seems that he's going to be staying there for the season. I think he's probably in that kind of bracket where probably Cameron Humphreys this time sort of last year, really, where I think he actually needs to go out and get regular first team football. And I think he would benefit from a loan. I think we play the way that Newcastle want to play as well. So it would suit Miley coming here. But, if Eddie Howe's going to give him some opportunities and, he's up for it, and obviously he's going to stay. But, you'd like to think it's going to be sort of bit part here and there. Obviously, he's not really going to be starting too many games. So, I mean, the thing with, Miley and players from the Premier League at the moment is that Premier League clubs are getting to the stage now where they're looking at their squads, they're looking to trim it down. And you always get to this season where, fringe players might not be making the 25-man squad. I know his age, he doesn't have to qualify for it, but again, he still might not play minutes if they sign other players. So Premier League clubs are getting to this stage now where they are looking at their squads and trying to trim it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, us go for at least one sort of Premier League quality midfielder in the central area, because quite frankly, we're crying out for it.
Yeah. Lewis Miley, any knowledge on the player, ITFC Beard, or is this one that you'd have to really sort of go and find some information out on?
So I've done a little bit of research. He likes to play as a deep line playmaker, which is probably the Sam Morsey role that we're missing, but then that Cam's originally positioned. So do we give an opportunity to someone else, or do we look at our own and play him more consistently there? I don't know. But by all means, from what I've seen, excited, highly coveted by Newcastle themselves. So I think a move would be beneficial for him to us. We're obviously got, that acumen of developing that kind of player. We have got the young ones in and they're going to do well. So I could see if they're going to move him, we'd be the target club for them.
Yeah. And I think what Tux was saying there about, we are in for several midfield players. Another one that's sort of been linked heavily is Philip Billing. What are your thoughts on that one?
6'5" lump in the middle, can play all the way through the midfield from the attacking midfield all the way to the defensive midfield. From what I've seen, strong player. I think he adds a good attacking threat to us. He's beefy. That's my kind of football player. If I'm on Football Manager, you want beefy boys in the positions you want them, and that's one of my beefy boys.
I'll be honest, when I'm playing Football Manager, here's a player I have to try and look to bring in, and when I've seen him live, Tux, I'm a big fan of his football. He's a great player, really good player, and this is one we can get over the line. I'd be very excited at that prospect.
Yeah, I think he really impacts. I see him mostly when he comes off the bench, obviously for Bournemouth. But when I have seen him, he affects games, he scores goals. He's a nuisance, obviously, because he's so big. But I think obviously he's that type of sort of central midfielder that can offer a bit of defensive work, but also kind of going forward as well. So, he'd be a good signing because I feel like we're kind of heavily reliant on someone like Kayust at the moment, who, let's face it, he's going to take time to get fit. If it's anything like last year, he's not going to finish 90. He's not going to finish 90 minutes. So, you need somebody in there that's that kind of quality, I suppose. And coming from the Premier League, a player that starts but also majority off the bench. It's a good signing if we can get him. But I like I like his profile, like what Beard's saying there. I think that because he's so big, but because he can go forward and backward as well. That's what I like about him most.
And he joins a list of midfield players that have been linked with Town or we've tried to go for. Gary in our chat says, why is McKenna looking at Hayden again when he turned Town down? I believe West Ham were looking at him anyway. Lots of conversation about that one, Beard and Tux, in terms of, player, has he turned us down? Did he turn us down? If he did, do you go back in for him? Where are you on that one, Beard? Because I fully believe, even if he did say no, and I don't know if it was cut and dry as that, I'd be straight back in for him if there's a slight possibility. Quality player.
I'd like to think that if it was a hard no, we would get the hint. I think he was obviously waiting for Premier League clubs to come in for him. I think that's, his, where his heart is set in. But if it was a hard no, I think, we would have got that hint and would have been like, no. If there's that hook still dangling, why wouldn't we go for him? That's a quality player that would would go straight into our squad and actually improve us tenfold, in my opinion.
Yeah. Talking about improving the squad, potential exit, but not an exit because it was rejected by the football club. Coventry reportedly made an approach for defender Luke Wolfenden. Tux, I'm a big Luke Wolfie fan, and I think he's very harsh not to be playing in the first team. He's a quality player. No surprise that a club in our division wants him. Where are you on this one? Do you think they'll come back for him? Do you think there's more legs in the story? Would you be sad to lose him, etc.?
I think, I suppose if you take your Ipswich rose-tinted spectacles off, would you be particularly bothered if another Championship club came in for him? Is it because he's come from our academy? He's a quality player, and I think he's certainly a centre half that is your modern day centre half. Obviously, plays out from the back and all that sort of stuff. But I think for me, he's not going to get above O'Shea currently, unless injury, suspensions, whatever it might be. But as a regular starter, I think he's going to find his opportunities limited this season. And he's a player that at this stage of his career is probably wanting to play first team football and kind of repeat what he's done with Ipswich in a way, where obviously getting promotion back to the Premier League with probably another Championship club. It doesn't surprise me he's getting linked with other clubs because I think Sheffield United have been long-term admirers of him. And I think he'd do a job for anyone in the Championship, obviously. But I think it's a case of that, if we reject bids now, obviously at some point he's going to want to move on. If he's not getting first team football, he's not going to be content with sitting on the bench all the time. So for me, it might be a time to cash in, but also I don't want to get to a point where currently at the moment when Sam Morsey went, we allowed him to go, didn't really have a replacement coming in as such. And I'd almost want, if Wolfenden is going to go, then we let him go once we've got a replacement because we don't need to sell him. And he's still a good player. And, I wouldn't want to lose him. I didn't want to lose Broadhead. I didn't want to lose Morsey. But, these are players that want to play football. They probably know their time's coming up. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to a Coventry or someone.
Be sad to lose him, though, wouldn't it, Beard, before we move on?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Tuck said it exactly right. You wouldn't want him to go, but you wouldn't blame him because he is at that kind of like position where he should be getting first team football. And had we not been the team that we are, he would be getting first team football for almost every team in the Championship right now.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to gut check time ahead of this weekend. So obviously this weekend we've got Preston away. Gut check time, scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not confident at all, 10 being boys, it's in the bag. Don't worry about it. Where are we as we head into Preston this weekend? Tux, 1 to 10, and why? Where are you?
I'd probably say that I'm currently a 8.
Okay.
I think after last weekend's result, there's a bit more positivity there, albeit we didn't get the win. But, the performance was better, individual performances were better and stuff like that compared to the first 2 games of the season. So you like to be confident going into these games. I think Preston, might be a bit of a dark horse this year, to be honest. But ultimately, I think we've got enough, and hopefully, with another week on the training ground, we'll get 3 points on this weekend.
Okay. 8, Beard, where are you and why?
I'm at about a 7. I would say 7.5, but you don't like that.
No, I do not.
Yeah, 7. I think Preston are looking good at the moment. You can't write them off. They do ground out draws. You can't write off they beat Leicester. They've got some good players in there, and I believe what Tuck said is right. They're going to be a dark horse. They're going to surprise a few teams that think they're going to come. They're a very counter-attacking team, so they're going to surprise a few.
Nick Miller says 9. Gary says 8. Mike says 7. A says 7. We are getting there. And Rob says 5 out of 10. Concerned about our striker situation. Let us know your gut check meter reading and why, as we now go into who starts this week. So this is where we try and predict or think or discuss or just give you who we feel should be starting. If there's any changes at all, just to remind ourselves, last time out, Town drew 1-1 with Southampton. Alex Palmer started in goal. Ben Johnson was at right back. O'Shea, Greaves and Davies completed the back 4 with my man of the match from Sunday and the Championship's best midfield player, number 5, Matasiwa, alongside Jack Taylor in midfield. Yeah, I've said it. Jack Clark on the right, Smodics in the middle, Jaden Fliggin on the left, and George Hurst was our lone striker. Lone striker in every sense of the word. Lone on the pitch, and the only striker we've got fit at the moment. So if please wrap him up in cotton wool between now and Saturday, or whenever you can get another person to sign a bit of paper that commits them to playing. Absolutely. So, would you make any changes, Beard? If so, where are they and why are they?
So the only change I'd make would probably I'd start Chaplin. I'd start Chaplin and Jans. I believe I'd get him for a little start early. That's the only change instead of Taylor.
So you're bringing in Jens Koyus for Jack Taylor, and you're starting Chaplin over Smodics, I imagine?
Smodics, yeah.
Which currently, we started this week on Monday night with some social media whispers going around, in terms of a potential injury, etc. Those, thankfully, so far haven't come to fruition. But you're starting him purely because you think Chaplin can bring something extra to the situation.
I think Chaplin is just. He's there, isn't he? He's ever present. Like, he's just one of those. He's small, diminutive, but he does it for us, And Smodics, he's starting to look like he's coming back, with the hit on the post and stuff like that. But I think, it's a long season. If we're going to keep them both match fit, you've got to rotate them like that, I think. And Connor Chaplin is just amazing for us. So I think maybe more heart than anything else, I'd pick Chappers.
Well, Dominic Dean certainly agrees with you. Chaplin must start, says Dom. Emphasis on the must. Tux, where are you? Where are you making any changes? Or are you just running it back with the same 1 to 11?
I think if there's any changes, there could be potentially 2 or 3. And I think the kind of sort of back 5 and the 2 in front of them sort of pick themselves at the moment, just based on that's who's fit. I'd be surprised if Koyus comes in for a start. I think he should be on the bench and obviously play some part again. But point being is that I think those players will start again. And I think obviously Hurst up top. But it's a sort of the 3 across the kind of attacking midfield, really. And I think it's more that I'd want Philogene to be on the left again. And I think there's no coincidence really that Davis had a good game, because he had someone in front of him that allowed him to sort of bomb forward. And for me, Jack Clark doesn't really allow that, because Jack Clark is your chalk on the boot sort of winger, where that's where he is. He really is on the wing, and he'll cut in and he'll do some skill. But Philogene is more of your sort of cutting in the top of broadhead sort of player that will come in, probably be a left 10 if you like. So I'd like Philogene to start, because I think that makes our team better. I think Jack Clark, he's another one at the moment where he needs a bit of confidence. He's a bit weak for me at the moment still. And I think it's probably between him and Ogbene, because I wouldn't be too surprised if Ogbene sort of got drafted back in potentially. But But otherwise, I'd go Clark again, potentially on the right. And I agree with Beard. I think certainly Chaplin coming back in would be a good option. I feel like Shimodics does need a chance to really make that 10 his own, because I said that the last time I come on here is that we haven't really seen Shimodics play in the 10 on a regular basis. He's always been sort of drafted out onto the left, and for me, I'd want to see him more in the 10. He had an opportunity, hit the post, against Southampton. If that goes in, that's a different story. We're probably all saying that he should start. So, it's all fine margins at the end of the day. But, what I like about Chaplin is I think his partnership with Hurst is a good one. He links up well with Hurst, and we've seen that obviously through the last couple of years they've played together. But, for me, I'd probably be drafting him back in just for this game. And if there is an injury question mark over Shimodics, Chaplin's going to come back in anyway. So for me, there's potentially 2 or 3 changes, but the main one being I think Chaplin coming in for Shimodics.
As we sit here on the 20th of August, are you concerned, Tux, about those real lack of options in the front? Well, all over the place, really, because you're talking about, like I50 Beards talking about maybe bringing Jens Kajust in, but if you don't, you've only got 2 midfield players and Cam Humphreys is a young player himself. You've got limited options in that area, and then of course those front 4 that you've just been talking about, you can't change a striker because you haven't got one fit that could come in. You've got Ogbene and Clark for the right-hand side, maybe Jaden Philogene if you wanted to as well. But left-hand side, you've got 1 or 2 options. There's all 1 or 2 options. There's no real depth there. There's no real, like last year, we had that real like selection riches where, yes, we're the league above. Yes, we got relegated, so that didn't turn out to be as much use. But you felt like you had options to really change things and try something, right? Are you concerned at this stage, 20th of August?
Yeah, I am, because we've also just lost obviously 2 quality players in Amari and Broadhead. Yep. So even before that, I thought we looked quite, wasn't too much depth there anyway. But losing 2 quality players like that really puts more emphasis on people like Jack Clark and Philogene to really perform. And then you're asking a lot of Ogbene, who's not played a lot of football, still getting up to pace with the season so far. So you're asking a lot of him as well. So. Yeah. For me, there's, we're crying out for quality bodies to come in quite a number of positions, to be honest with you. And, I feel like there's been an element recently of maybe panicking in terms of the transfer market. Again, when I came on last time, I wasn't sure whether Akpom was really the type of player we're going after. Again, I think he's a very good signing, but I almost think he wasn't one of the original targets. And I think you'll see now that we probably will go back in for a Hackney. And I'm sort of mixed about that, to be honest with you. I know we brought him up earlier, but for me, Hackney's a player where, again, with your Ipswich spectacles on, you're sort of sitting there thinking, well, he's already rejected us. Why are we going back in for him again? But at the same time, he's a quality player. He's a quality player in that position, one of the best in the Championship. Players want to go to the Premier League. That's absolutely fine. That's the careers. He's not the first player, he's not the last player to do that. But if he wants to come here, he'll be a good signing for us.
Yeah, and yeah, well, I'm all in on the Hackney transfer. If we can get it over the line, I think he's an absolute quality player. Obviously, you mentioned Akpom there. You could see Akpom in some limited minutes this week, but certainly not positioned to start.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have thought. But does it concern you, Beard, in terms of the lack of options? Because and really to go further with that question, to ask you, and I know we've got a Preston North End fan joining us very shortly. I will come to you very after this next question, I absolutely promise you. But Beard, just going to go further with that question. Does there seem like there's a plan? Are you concerned at the plan? Because obviously Ashton, I think from memory, said at the start of the year we're going to attack it. We know the squad will be key. We'll talk about squad options here, and the depth's not quite there. Does it concern you?
I think if anything taught us anything from last year is and 1 or 2 injuries completely change our transfer strategies. Like we were crying out for a striker last season in the Premier League, and because we got an injury out to Ogbene pretty early, but then that's what was our focus on, and we kind of like relied heavily on Delap. And I think it could be very much similar here, like 1 or 2 injuries in key positions, and we're going to be up the creek, So. Though I'm not quite hitting the panic button yet, I think that there is a potential for it to go that way very easily. I don't want a scattergun approach and just get people in for the sake of getting people in, but we do need to get the right recruits, and we need to get them in sooner rather than later, because McKenna is slow at embedding them, getting them up to speed. So we need to get them in so that we can start that process.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, keep your comments coming in. I'll get to as many as I possibly can. And don't forget, this show is brought to you in partnership with Match Bingo. Match Bingo combining the excitement of live sport with the thrill of bingo. Your card has 15 random events from a live football match, and you watch them get marked off as the game unfolds. It's a brand new way to enjoy live football. You must be 18 or over. Terms and conditions apply. Please gamble responsibly. Visit begambleaware.org for more information. Link is in the description, or scan the QR code, which I've tried several times before we went live to make sure it was working, and it should be. So scan it to play. I got my bingo card for Monday night's game, Leeds Everton, which obviously Leeds won in the end. I didn't quite do enough to get a line, two or three lines, is it, in a full house? But it was good fun. It was good fun. Not so much good fun, boys, watching Leeds win. Another promoted side winning on opening weekend when it took us what felt like forever to get off onto our first win. So that's a bit disappointing. But yeah, anyway, Dominic Dean has gifted 5 Talking Town memberships. Dominic, thank you so much.
Yes,
That's 5
Dom.
lucky people who can come over to the Discord sphere and be policed by this man here. Look at that. Right, we are going to go behind enemy lines because we have joined by a Preston North End fan. Welcome in. It is Jolly Ollie YouTube. Jolly Ollie, welcome in. Can I call you Ollie? Is that all right?
Yes, that's fine.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us. Are you well, first and foremost?
I am, thanks.
Good. Looking forward to this Saturday's game. Obviously, you know, is it your second home game of the season? I believe it is.
Yeah, well, obviously after the performance that we put in against relegated side Leicester City, then I am quite hopeful coming into this game against Ipswich. I haven't seen too much of your performances so far this season. I've just seen that you've picked up a couple of 1-1 draws, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yes,
Probably best that you haven't.
Yeah, that's probably true. So you come in the back of it, obviously after beating Leicester 2-1. You drew on opening day with QPR. How are things down your way at Preston at the moment? Because obviously coming into the season, what were your expectations? And having seen those first 180 minutes, where are you now in terms of the expectations? Do you want to change those slightly, or do you think you were right in the summer?
Well, yeah, obviously we've not got much to go off, seeing that we've only played 2 games of the new season. Last season we were lucky to survive on the final day, but I'm hoping for an improvement. I know we're one of the favourites to get relegated this season, which I find ridiculous because we are like the definition of a mid-table championship club. So I think we'll improve on last season back to our mid-table status. I think we're going to see an improvement because this is Paul Heckingbottom's first season in charge. Of course, he did come in quite early on after Ryan Lowe left us after 1 game of the season last season. But it's been his first pre-season, his first summer window. And well, on last weekend, it was one of the best performances I've seen at Deepdale in a long time. After a pretty flat performance against Barrow in the first round of the cup, we really did show up last weekend. And obviously, it is just the 1 game so far, and as one home game so far. As I say, we're new into the season. But if last week's trend can continue week in, week out, then it'll be a massive improvement on last season where we did pick up too many draws. That is why we saw ourselves at the bottom of the table. And I know it's one of the commonly used phrases in football that turn those draws into wins, but that is literally what we had to do. And I think this season, as I said, under Paul Heckingbottom, we are going to see an improvement of that this season.
Yeah, and we've got a question in the chat for you already from Dominic Dean. How do you rate Heckingbottom over Low?
Well, over Low, big improvement. So I'll by miles, for me, he's miles better than Ryan Lowe. In terms of the championship, I'll probably put him in the top 10 managers in the championship. Of course, he did get Sheffield United promoted to the Premier League a couple of seasons ago after they had got relegated under Wilder and were struggling a little bit. But of course, with a top team like that, you already inherit top players. So it will be interesting to see what he can do at a club with a club like Preston. But yeah, I'll say he's top 10 in the Championship for me, but 100% way better than Ryan Lowe.
All right, talk to us about Preston then, Ollie. How do you set up? What style of play do you come into the game with? Tell us a bit about Preston at the moment under Heckingbottom.
Well, we play with a wing back formation, and that is a key part of how we play. We play down those wide sides. Last season it was a bit too defensive, and he's already said it in one of his interviews this season that he's going to start attacking more, because if as we were drawing so many games last season, he said is a new thing this season that if we're drawing with like 20 minutes to go, he would rather risk going for all 3 points, even if it means that they lose just the one, because again, just turning those draws into wins. So I think that's what we saw against Leicester City, where I before the game I would have taken a point. So when we scored that first goal, I thought, this is great. We can just somehow just hold off and by some miracle snatch and grab against Leicester. But we kept, like, when we scored that goal, we kept on going for it, and not just sitting back and created more chances and tried to extend our lead, which surprised me a bit, but it was great to see. So definitely a key part of that is down the wides, both right and the left, with the wing backs playing a key role.
Yeah, Rob's doing my job for me in the chat. Love to see it, Rob. It says, question, it's early doors, but what players should Town be wary of this Saturday?
Managed, gotta be.
Well, yeah, it's our striker Osmajic. He scored 2 goals in 2 games so far this season. Thierry Small, down the wing, he can play both on the right and the left. He's against QPR, he was on the right hand side. Against Leicester, he was on the left. We brought him in from Charlton, who got promoted from League One last season, and he played a lot down the right hand side for them. But against Leicester, he looked really good on the left compared to QPR, where he played on the right. So I would like to see him on the left more than the right. Another player to look out for is defensive midfielder Ali McCann. Really strong tackler of the ball. He covers all areas of that midfield. And of course, signing of the season for me, Daniel Everson, our goalkeeper, who was on loan at us last season. Not last season, sorry, a few years back. But we brought him in permanently now. And I think it was a massive mistake for Leicester to let him go, especially after that. Stowmarket, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the Leicester keeper. For me, he made a massive mistake to come out of his goal for our first goal that we scored just last weekend. Still a lot to do for Alfie Devine from a tight angle, but he still manages to find the finish, and he takes his goal well.
Yeah. Any questions before we go to score predictions?
Yeah, just a quick question for you, Ollie. For me, watching Preston from an outsider's point of view, I know I've got a couple of people that I know as Preston fans, and I've seen sort of Preston, certainly when we was in the Championship for 15, 16 plus years last time, that Preston are a great Championship club, well backed, all of that sort of stuff. But I feel like you've sort of stagnated over the years. And it also reminds me of when we had Marcus Evans here, where it was a case that we weren't really going anywhere other than probably down. And I guess that sort of felt like that last season. But do you feel that this season is a bit more? There's a bit more hope there, obviously after the Leicester game, obviously. But going into this new season, where do you see Preston moving forward this year?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's going to be an improvement this season. I think that we'll get back up to mid-table. Obviously, the hope is always to push on for the playoffs, and which is where Preston was under Alex Neil about 5 years ago. Of course, then it was the COVID season where I think it was a mistake to let Alex Neil go. I don't like letting managers go willy-nilly like Watford do. and we got in Frankie McAvoy, who he didn't have any experience at managing level, especially in the Championship. I think he's like in non-league now with a local team close to Preston, but in like the National League. Then obviously Ryan Lowe was an improvement on Frankie McAvoy. He did bring in some fresh air into the club, but only for one season, where then in his second season he just lost it. I think he just went out of his depth. I think you could tell in his interviews that he lost interest himself, which obviously would transfer onto the players as well. So Heckingbottom, I think, as I said earlier, big improvement on Ryan Lowe. So I think we are going to see ourselves going upwards rather than downwards. But if we do get relegated, that would be a big shame if the bookies' predictions do come true. But I think we'll be clear of that.
Yeah, I like Heckingbottom. I think, as you say, like he got promoted with Sheffield United. You know, certainly I would say I agree with your sentiment earlier, where he's probably in the top 10 managers in the Championship. I've kind of got you down as a sort of a dark horse this year. I always think there's a team that come out from nowhere, even if they're relegation kind of candidates at the start of the season. I always think there's a team that comes out of nowhere to sort of join that pack of the top six potentially, or sort of going towards it. You've only got to look at Sunderland last year for that as well. So, you know, can you see yourself being that kind of dark horse moving forward for Preston?
Yeah. Well, I hope so. It's hard really to comment on your own team. Of course, I'm always hoping for the best, but it is reassuring to see other fans from other teams having us to like prove the bookies wrong and to have a shock season.
Yep.
All right, score prediction time then, fellas. Let's jump to it. So I want your score predictions for this weekend's game: Preston versus I've lost him. Ipswich. I'll start with the guest, Jolly Ollie. Before you do go tell us your score prediction, where can people find you and your content?
Well, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter with just what my name is at my tag at Jolly Ollie YT. Yeah.
Excellent. And your score prediction surprised me by saying Town win. Go on.
Well, for my score prediction, I've gone for a 1-1 draw.
Oh, okay.
Just like I said, for the Leicester game, I would have taken a draw before the game against an ex-Premier League side. But considering the performance from like the three centre halves, Story, Gibson, Hughes, they put in a strong performance. As I've already mentioned, the wing backs and Michael Smith, actually, who we got off Sheffield Wednesday, who's about 33, 34 years old. A lot of fans, weren't happy with bringing him in as a striking option, obviously considering his age. But as him working with Osmajic, he's actually just against Leicester. He put in a top performance. He's a big target man. He'll hold up the ball well, and the pair of them up top, the combination works well with Osmajic running in behind. So yeah, I do have some hope for against Ipswich. Obviously, as I said, considering that you've not managed to pick up a win yet this season, a couple of 1-1 draws. But as I said, I don't know how you have performed in those games. But yeah, I think a draw would be maybe a fair result for both sides here.
Okay, so 1-1 says Jolly Ollie YT. That's where you can find him. Tux, your score prediction, please.
I'm going to go 3-2 Ipswich, I think, because I've got a funny feeling that Michael Smith is going to score against us. He's a bit of a pain in the arse when we play against him. And I think you're going to see her score, and I'd like to think that maybe Philogene might get one as well. Love Jack Clark to get one as well. But yeah, I think Hurst and Philogene will be on the score sheet. So yeah, hopefully it'll be a 3-2. No offence, Ollie.
Excellent. Beard?
I'm going 3-1 to Town.
3-1. Yeah.
3-1 to Town. I think Preston play the way we like to go against the teams. They're very much a counter-attacking team, not really high in possession. So I think that'll play into us. So I think we'll we should do well. Obviously, they've got some danger men, like Ollie said. Obmanich is crazy at the moment. Hopefully, we can stifle him. But I think we'll get the win.
Excellent. Well, don't forget, you can check out Ollie's stuff at Jolly Ollie at YT. Ollie, thanks for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
All the best. Take care. Good luck. Thanks for Ollie there for joining us. We've got some comments coming in, such as I don't know whose microphone is that? Who can I hear? No, don't worry. Right, we'll move it on. I've got a great comment here about Spud Bros, which is basically somebody saying, "I want a Spud Bros now, thanks to Ollie." Because obviously, all over the shirt was Spud Bros. Have either of you ever had a Spud Bros, by the way?
No,
I haven't. No, he was obviously
Spud Bros over Spud Man, though. Controversial. So there you go.
I haven't got a clue who either are, to be honest with you. I'm perhaps showing my age. I know who was at the Suffolk show?
Spud Man.
Oh, okay. Never mind, moving on.
I'm a chef, so when I see sort of like working conditions in working kitchens, it kind of freaks me out a little bit. So I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, no. James Warren Elmer, Town 3, Preston 1. Dominic says 2-1 Town. Rob says 2-1 Town. Raxmax says 1.5 time, then Town wins 3-1 by 90 minutes. And Gary says 2-1 Town. And Paul, who just nipped in there as I was pressing Gary's comment to get his own comment on the screen, says 1-0 Town, clean sheet for confidence. All right, let's end the show on a segment we sort of did last week. Before we do, don't forget we are also a partner with Stowmarket Osteopaths, providing quality osteopathy and physiotherapy services in Suffolk since 1985. If you want professional, experienced care, give them a call on 01449 613 633. Freddie is the governor there. I go and see him quite regularly. So when you phone them, say, Freddie, the Gov at Talking Town has sent me. And 01449 613 633. All right. This segment we did last week, it's called Fan Social. It's where I put out a couple of comments from our YouTube shows over the last week. And you lovely people have left your wonderful comments. And I want to know from these two gentlemen here, are you on the right track or heading for Matt Phillips's wilderness? So I'll start with you, Beardy. Here's the first one. Once again, I've left the names off, but it says KM's tactics didn't work last season. He hasn't learned anything from last season.
I agree and disagree because we're all waxing lyrical about, the season we go up, the 2 seasons we go up and stuff like that. Is he slow to adapt? Yes. But has he got a tactic that he likes? Like many managers have done it before. They've got a tactic that they're comfortable with, they like. They build a whole system around it. Does he need to adapt his substitutions more and maybe change a few things on the fly? Maybe, in my opinion. But yeah, I think we don't need to panic yet.
On the right path or heading for the wilderness?
On the right path.
On the right path. All right. Tux, this one, again, I'm not going to say the name. I nearly did there. Not going to say the name. This comment here is, there's no doubt that the standard quality has dropped significantly, and we need at least 4 decent incomings to get near automatic. The next 2 weeks will make or break this season. If that's considered a good performance by Clark and Johnson after Southampton, then I'd hate to see a poor one. Clark needs to come out and earn his way back in. He's been giving low to average performances for a long time now. On the right path or heading for the wilderness? And what are your thoughts in response to that comment? Again, thanks for the comments, though.
Yeah, I think it's fairly spot on. I think I agree to a sentiment about Clark, where I said earlier that I think he's still a bit weak. I don't know if he really sort of suits the system that McKenna plays, to be honest with you, just really purely because he is that chalk on your boots winger sort of thing. But yeah, I think, certainly the quality has dropped somewhat. But that's because we've lost players. That's because players like Delat, Amari aren't in the building anymore. We're at a point now where we're trying to rebuild parts of the squad. Obviously, we've still got good players and enough to beat teams like Preston. But at the same time, we still need bodies to come in. We still, I wouldn't want to go into the rest of, or certainly into January, with this squad as it is at the moment. We still need players in there. I wouldn't feel confident in that this squad would take us to January because, you're going to get injuries, you're going to get suspensions, and it's only got to have something happen to Hurst, and we're looking at straight down the barrel again. So for me, yes, spot on to a certain degree.
All right, there we go. We have done the show. We are only 10 minutes over the allotted time I thought we would deliver tonight. So you two boys have done exceptionally well. The next time I give Max Phillips 40 seconds to put a point across, I'll make sure I reference this show for him as homework, because you two boys have been on it. You have hit the cues as I thought you would. But appreciate you joining me. Beard, you made it through your first one officially. Well done. Congratulations. 2 more and you get an intro. Not that I play intros anymore, but you get an intro.
Yeah.
Tux, as always, you've been the steady man next to him. You've led the line. You've talked him all the way through the 30, 40 minutes. You've got him through the debut.
He's held my hands.
Absolutely. The Jason DeVos of the Talking Town Towers. He's done it again. I always know to stick new people with Tux. I know he's going to look after him, as did Jason DeVos, Matt Holland, Luke Chambers. Although I'm not quite sure he goes as far as Luke Chambers, and we'll invite you around the house to stay. But you never know. You never know. But thanks for watching at home as well. Thanks for choosing Talking Town. Hit the like button, subscribe. We are back Friday for our members show on Discord this week. I hope and I pray. Head to YouTube, hit the join button to become a member. It's $4.99. T's and C's all there, as well as all the information about becoming a member. But until then, this man's been Tux. This man's been Beard. I've been your host. Thanks for watching. Take care. All the best. God bless.
You make me smile when I think of you.